a former Detective Chief Inspector with the Metropolitan Police. Evening to you, Peter.
Hi.
What do you make of what Sajid Javid, or what do you think he should be saying, Sajid Javid, tomorrow to the police force?
I think what he should be saying is, first of all, distancing himself from the attacks on the police that his predecessors have done for the last 8 years. But he's going to have difficulty doing that because one of them, for most of that period, was Theresa May.
When you say attacks on the police, you mean things like cutting budgets?
No, the way she's done it. She's not just cut budget, she's never just cut budget. She's done it with total animosity and hatred, and you know, she addressed the Police Federation. She did the speech that he's doing tomorrow a couple of times in 2013-ish, and you could see her face contorted with hatred. She was snarling at them, she was berating them. You could almost see the spittle coming from her lips.
Oh, Peter, I think you're being a little bit visceral. I don't think that's true or fair.
Go look them up.
I don't think it's true to say any Home Secretary has a visceral hatred for the police force.
Theresa May seemed to have.
But she, again, I just think the idea that any Home Secretary has a responsibility to look after the citizens of this country through the police force is operating in a time when budgets have to be looked at, and says to the police, look, you're going to have to do something about your finances. That is a tough message to give, sure.
Of course it is. And so if you're going to actually fulfil that duty, you need to make sure that you bolster the morale of the police service. You know you want to work harder for.
So do you think
did the opposite.
Do you think it's going to bolster the morale of the police force to know that there is a Home Secretary who has at least some family experience of knowing what it's like to be a frontline police officer?
It's a good start, but he's got to get that message across that he genuinely does understand policing, wants to understand it better now he's in that job, will listen to professional police officers, and understands, you know, that he needs to support them. For absolutely zero money whatsoever, he could totally reverse the attacks on the police that the government have had for 8 years and be supportive. So he could do that for nothing, and he could do it tomorrow if he wanted to.
And what would that look like, Peter? What would that sound like, or what would that be in practice?
That would look like him distancing himself from the things that have been said before, saying that, you know, I'm my own man and I'm going to be doing it my way. And I understand, you know, through family connection, blah, blah, blah. I understand the situation and the dire straits and the morale, and you're working every hour God sends and whatever. And I support you. I want to help you do what you can. There's got to be cuts. Yes, we can't just sort of reverse all the cuts, but we need to do what we can to help you do the best you can to protect the public, as you're trying to do, and you know that you're not able to do as well as you should be doing because of the cuts. The second thing you could do is undertake to change legislation. There's 2 or 3 things knocking around. They've just put a consultation out about pursuit and response driving today.
Yes.
That's been knocking around for years, and they've now put it out for consultation until August, which is government speak for kicking it into the long grass again. There's stuff about assaults on police officers. So there's 2 or 3 bits of legislation that he could listen to and undertake to get through as quickly as possible, and that could be got through a lot quicker than the government's ever tried.
And what about the violent crime that we're seeing in London and other places around the country? What could the police response be, or what could change in order to help the police get a better grip on this?
Well, that needs money. At the end of the day, that needs resources. So if he's going to turn around and say, I can't give you any more resources, then what he's got to do instead is tell the police what he doesn't want them to do anymore. So I don't want you to do this, so you can take those resources away. So you're not expected to do that anymore. You've got more resources to do this that we do need to focus on. But the government for 8 years has taken money away, has increased the standards to which the police are expected to do stuff, and has not taken any more work away. In fact, he's invented work. And so he's got to reverse one or the other. He either gives them more resources to cut the ridiculous workloads, or he removes some of the ridiculous workloads. And he's got to say, I am going to get to grips with this one way or the other. I'm not just going to do what my predecessors have done, which is take resources away from you, give you ever more work, insist on ever higher standards and insist on this ridiculous message of more for less, because all you get for less is less.
And if he isn't able to do that, given the financial constraints, if he isn't, and it doesn't land well, and he doesn't quite use the right language that goes down well with officers, the relationship with him, you would suggest, with frontline police officers is going to be a rather difficult one then?
Yes, and the fact he's got a brother in the police isn't going to help him on its own. He needs to show that he is going to be different in pretty much every way from his predecessors, not just the first one, but both of them.
Can I ask you then about I mentioned earlier about gang violence and how it relates to drugs and how we're seeing this violent crime spring up. Is your view that the drug usage that we're seeing, and the security minister is saying today that we are becoming the biggest cocaine users in Europe now, this country is the biggest cocaine user in Europe, do you think that has a demonstrable impact on the type of crime that we're seeing and the rise in the type of crime we're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. I've said a number of times that the rise in serious violence that we're seeing is in the category of serious violence that is associated with street crime and street drug dealing. Obviously, there's violence in all sorts of contexts, in the course of armed robberies, in the course of domestic abuse, in the course of child abuse, whatever it might be. The one that has increased significantly and sharply over the last few years is street crime related. And that is the one that is impacted by the absence of police officers. As soon as they've got a problem, what do? They throw police officers at it and it goes away. So we all know that police officers in public places prevents and reduces crime.
See, the argument from the other side is that, and we're going back to this correlation, causation between numbers of police and crime rates. The argument from the other side is that the overall crime rate has fallen. Police numbers or police budgets have fallen as well, and frontline officers have been reduced. But when there were more police officers serving, crime rates were actually up.
That takes no note of two major factors. Number one, the number of police officers has a direct impact on street-related crime, and that is not total crime. So it's only some types of crime. Secondly, there's a time lag. If they said tomorrow, we're going to put all those 20,000 police officers back again, they wouldn't come back on Thursday. They wouldn't come back next year. There would be a time lag of at least four-ish years before they started coming through and being noticed on the street again. They wouldn't all turn up at once. Likewise, the cuts didn't all turn up at once. There was a time lag. And so when you take that into account, and you take account of the fact we're only looking at changes in street-related crime, and you then look at things like drugs, which everyone says, oh, drugs is going down, weapons are going down. Yeah, of course they are, because there's no police officers doing the stop and searches, which is the only way those things usually come to light. No one rings up and says, oh, there's a drug crime happening. You know, a few do, but the vast majority of crime like that is only found by stop and search proactivity. And so if you cut that, that goes down. And so if you take all those things into account, then the impact of the police cuts when it comes to reducing police presence in public places is very, very apparent.
Okay, Peter, we must leave it there only for time reasons. Thank you, Peter Kirkham, former Detective Chief Inspector with the Met Police.